Guitar Business Radio is the podcast for the business of guitar, where you'll always get no reviews, no demos, and no idle chatter. From players to CEOs and in between. If you have a professional or business connection to the world of guitar, this show is your window to insight and information you won't get anywhere else. I'm Jeffrey D. Brown, and I approve this message. So let's get to it. From Guitar Business Media, welcome to the 53rd episode of GBR as we plow through the beginning of our second year of weekly shows. Every Wednesday, rain or shine. We've been having a lot of rain here in Southern California of late, and I think we're all agreeing that it's a good thing and we need it, but I also have to say that as a result of all this precipitation, we've been able to pretty much shut down our automatic sprinkler system, and considering the increased cost of water, we've saved quite a bit. So I definitely want to thank the universe for paying a nice portion of my water bill. Now, I usually like to take just a quick moment in the front of the show to share with you some of the new things we're doing. And really, it seems like we're always doing something new and creating more work for us in the process. But that's okay. Everything seems to find its proper place in the whole scheme of things. Some things move to the front, some things move to the back. But some of you may have noticed or heard, through the grapevine maybe, that we have a new podcast coming online. It's kind of a spin-off of sorts from Guitar Business Radio. It's called GBR Focus, and it's a very different approach for a podcast, and I'm not really going to get into many of the details here and now, other than to say that each episode is devoted to a single company or organization and their brands, or products, services, or other activities. It's a different format than this show, but I can assure you that it will be the same caliber of creativity and production value that you've come to expect from the GBR brand. So I strongly encourage you to listen to the trailer for the show, which is out now at gbrfocus.com. Very simple, gbrfocus.com. Let us know if you have any thoughts or questions. And while you're busy scheduling your visit to gbrfocus.com, I'm afraid we're going to have to move along to something completely different. Well, my guest today on GBR is RJ Ronquillo, and he's one of the most versatile guitar players I know. In fact, it's his versatility that has allowed him to build a thriving business producing video gear demos for companies like Eastwood Guitars and others. Chances are very good you've seen one or more of his signature demos. Combined with his successful YouTube channel, RJ is a very busy guy, and he gives us some great insight on how a talented guitar player can really monetize his work. There's a lot of great information to sift through as RJ Ronquillo joins us right here and right now. Hey, RJ, thanks for coming on the show with us. Welcome to GBR.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Great to be here.
Yeah, I've been a big fan, for quite a while. I've watched many of your videos and demos and other kinds of stuff that you've done, and we'll get into that later on in the interview, and a lot of good stuff to talk about. But, we have this tradition here that we start off and kind of developing a foundational view of our guests, and that usually entails me asking you about some of the things during the years you were growing up that made the biggest impact as far as, helping you get to where you are today. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I kind of grew up in a musical household. My father was a hobbyist musician, and he played all kinds of instruments. He played piano, saxophone, guitar, drums, percussion. He's a great singer. And so I always had different kinds of instruments around the house growing up. And the first instrument that I learned was piano. My parents kind of made me and my sister take piano lessons when I was 6 and she was 8. So that was my first foray into the whole musical landscape, so to speak. And soon after that, I kind of got bored and I wanted to try other instruments. So I took up the drums for a little bit. And then eventually I got interested in guitar probably when I was 9 years old. This would have been the mid 80s. So, radio and MTV that's all I saw and heard. And, my dad had guitars lying around the house this whole time. And I just kind of picked up one of his old acoustics and just kind of fiddled it around with it. And then he kind of asked me if I was interested in learning. And I said, sure. So that's kind of where it all started. 9 years old.
That's a great age to start it too, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it was the perfect time too, because Back to the Future was like the huge movie that came out. And I tell people that Michael J. Fox was my first guitar hero because, in that movie, he plays guitar a lot, and like that scene at the dance where he's playing Chuck Berry song.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Johnny Be Good. Johnny Be Good was my song.
I'm just kind of freaking out here that, and even using that term dates me, but that it was that long ago that the DeLorean was around. So,
oh yeah, can you believe that?
So continuing on.
Yeah. So from there, I got into. Chuck Berry was kind of like my first hero after Michael J. Fox.
Okay.
Yeah, so I like the 50s music was kind of the first guitar music that I was into, even though that, this was the mid 80s and like you had pop music and hard rock music on the radio. But me, I was interested in, Chuck Berry and Elvis and Buddy Holly.
Did you learn those Chuck Berry licks early on?
I did. That was the first stuff that I wanted to learn, was to play like Michael J. Fox and Chuck Berry. So some of the first songs I learned was, Johnny Be Good and La Bamba and a couple Beatles songs. So I was an early rock and roller fan from the get-go. And then I, as time went on, I got interested in more different kinds of music. So I went through a phase where I liked 80s hard rock, so Van Halen and guys like Steve Vai and Joe Satriani, the Shredders.
Yep. Now, did you get into electric guitar at some point? Did that show up or become part of your life?
Yeah, electric. So I fiddled around with a student-sized acoustic, and then my dad had an electric guitar that I first started taking lessons on, and it was like a cheap Japanese brand, Kingston. They made like a semi-hollow body with a...
we all had one of those. or something
Isn't
that was
whole, the Teisco kind of Sears brand.
I had a custom craft. I think even Eastwood is making something like it. Because they've made so many, and we'll talk about that later too. But go on,
yeah. So that was the first guitar I learned on, and I think I played that for probably about a year, and it was pretty difficult. And then for my birthday, I begged my parents for like a real like modern guitar, so they got me a Fender Strat, like a Japanese made Fender Strat, which I still have.
Ah, cool.
And like the difference was like night and day. The action was, the strings were easier to fret. The action was lower. It sounded better. It stayed in tune better. So I was more excited about playing guitar once I had this. Yeah. And that was my first real electric guitar, was a Fender Strat. And eventually after getting into rock and roll, I had an interest in playing jazz music, because I figured, if I can play jazz, then I can play anything. Which later in my adult years, I found out wasn't necessarily true. But I just wanted to, when I was in high school, I just wanted to absorb as much varied kinds of music as possible. So I was playing jazz and fusion and like Grateful Dead jam band stuff. So I had tons of different influences in my younger years, and kind of blossomed into like my whole interest in different genres even today.
And so this culminated at what point, say in high school years or that time, were you playing with any bands or playing with other people at all, or what was happening? Sure.
I had bands since I was in fifth grade.
Oh, okay.
We would play covers of like Guns N' Roses or whatever. We didn't really write our own music. It was more just like playing the dances,
Sure.
playing talent shows and playing covers and stuff.
Yeah.
So I had just modern rock and roll was what we were playing, and some like classic rock like Led Zeppelin and stuff like that. And then in high school, I had a Jimi Hendrix tribute band that I put together for a talent show. So I would dress up like Hendrix, and like, the band members would dress up like The Experience, and we did covers of what did we do? Foxy Lady, Little Wing, and I think I did the Star Spangled Banner at some point too. But it was fun. It was just like a little tongue-in-cheek type of fun gig. But we actually did a couple shows out at clubs, which was interesting as a high school.
Did you get paid for that, or was it just?
I think we did. I think we got like $100 or something.
So that was maybe your first sort of foray almost into the professional world. Huh?
That was the first real stage that I had ever played on. It was. I'm from the Detroit area, Metro Detroit, and it was the State Theater, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is downtown Detroit. And we were opening up for a friend's ska band. So this was like the early 90s, mid 90s. And I had never been on a stage with like monitors or like engineers or anything. So it was cool. It was interesting.
So you learned fast. Huh?
Oh yeah. I learned, and then, I learned about live sound and how it works, and miking guitar cabinets and sound checks and everything. And
so once you were, sort of finished with those school days, what was the point that you really started to get serious about the business of guitar?
Well, okay, so I went to college for music. So I studied music in college. I went to the University of Miami.
Okay.
And my first major was music engineering, which was, to me, I thought it was, being in the studio and running the board and running recording sessions. But, my parents liked the idea that there was engineering in the title of music engineering.
It's like
it made them happy. It made everybody happy.
Or you could be going for music law or something like that.
Yeah. It's like, you're not a musician. You're like in the business side of music.
Right.
But I soon came to find out it was more in depth, especially at the University of Miami. It was more than just recording. They taught acoustic design and like electronic design, and that was not for me. That was kind of way over my head. I did it for a year and I tried it, but I wasn't into it. And I had a lot of friends that were in the jazz program, the performance program, and I wanted to do what they were doing. So I changed majors the next year and told my parents that that's what I wanted to do, and they were very supportive.
Oh, good.
Remarkably for Filipino parents. But so I studied jazz music in college, and from the moment I changed my major, I told myself this is my path. I have to be a professional musician, whether that means being a teacher at some point or playing on a tour or recording sessions or something. At the time, this would have been mid to late 90s already, so your options of a professional musician were either to tour, to be a session musician, or to teach. Yeah. So that was what I figured. I would do one of those or all of them at some point.
And you were living where at that point?
Miami, South Florida.
Okay.
So that's kind of where it started for me deciding to be a professional guitar player.
And so how did you proceed from there? Did you get work at all or what?
Yeah. I mean, in college, there wasn't really much work you could do other than to play local gigs. After college, so after I graduated, it took me about a year to really get my heels into an actual paying situation as far as making a living out of, or making some money from playing music. I didn't really have an interest in being a teacher, so I didn't teach a lot. I taught a little bit, but that I didn't really like doing that because I don't feel like I'm a great teacher one-on-one. So I did that a little bit, but eventually I fell into the world of club dates or, playing cover band stuff at the local lounges and bars. So that actually became a fairly decent living at the time. And in South Florida, that was a big thing. Playing 4 nights a week and sometimes playing weddings or corporate events that paid a little bit more. But eventually that became a full-time job. I was able to quit my day job, which was selling cell phones at the mall.
Got it. Okay. I was going to ask you about that. What else? Because almost everybody who's getting started has to have some kind of a support job.
Exactly. So that was kind of my day job out of college. And some friends that I met in college had put together some bands, some cover bands. And they had asked me if I wanted to do some gigs. And I said, sure. And eventually, 1 gig a week turned into 2 gigs a week. And then eventually, 4 gigs a week. And it was enough where I was making more at that than at my day job. So, and kind of doing both the day job and the nighttime gigs was getting a little bit too much.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Getting noticed. Yeah, especially in South Florida, we would play sometimes until 3 a.m.
Yeah, well, that's tough. So you got about 2 hours of sleep,
Yeah, it was, I was young and I was able to do it for a little bit, but I knew at that time that it wasn't the healthiest lifestyle. So, and plus I didn't want to, I went to college for music. I didn't want to sell cell phones.
Sure.
At the mall. So, I just kind of dedicated my time to playing in cover bands, and it was comfortable. I didn't really have any sights set out further than that at the time. But thankfully and luckily for me that it did turn out to expand a little more. From there I got into touring. I guess that's how it went.
How did that happen?
So I was playing a local gig at the arena. I was in the house band for the Miami Heat basketball team. And what we would do is we would play during the game, like little bumper songs during the timeouts and everything. And then at the end of the game, we played at the lounge for like a post-game party that they always had on, I think it was Friday or Saturday nights or something. Just play a couple hours playing covers. Right. And one of the musicians in the band had a friend come check us out. And that friend turned out to be a drummer for a fairly popular reggae band at the time called Inner Circle. And Inner Circle, if you don't know, they do the Cops theme song.
Okay, sure. Now I remember. I knew I kind of that was ringing a bell with me, and then that just rang it even further.
Yeah, they had a couple of hits in the 90s. They were big in the 90s, and so he saw me play. And at the time, they were looking for a touring guy because I guess the previous guitar player had left, and so he asked me if I wanted to just jam. I guess it would have been an audition technically, but he invited me over to their studio to jam and see how it gelled. And it gelled well, and I got the gig. And I think it was later that summer was my first real tour. It's like a U.S. East Coast tour in a real bus.
How would you characterize your skill level at that point?
I was pretty confident with my playing. I was still pretty green back then, but I knew enough. I knew enough to know that you didn't want to like be a shredder or a show off. You had to play for the song and to be able to interact well with other musicians was.
So that's a lesson. That's a good lesson that you probably learned along the way, and they're very important too. It makes a lot of sense.
I was kind of taught that in college. One of the things that they taught you in the jazz program was you have to listen to the other musicians. You don't want to stick out like a sore thumb. You want to be able to blend in. So I knew from the get-go that being a professional musician, you didn't want to have an ego and try to, stand out. And especially for this gig, I was a hired gun guitar player that would take solos, but it's not my gig. So I'm there to make the band sound good.
Right.
So that was kind of my lesson there.
So that takes you're now a few years into this? At this point?
I'm probably in my early 20s now.
Okay.
And
so how did things progress from there? What was the next milestone?
So the next milestone, I did that gig for a couple of years. And then at the same time I was doing that Inner Circle gig, I got another touring gig, which was with a Latin artist. So, living in South Florida, there's a lot of Latin pop music going. I mean, that's like the big business there, especially at the time. So this particular gig was with a Colombian singer named Soraya, female singer named Soraya. Mm-hmm. And I got the call because I was in a local band with the drummer, and I guess he had gotten called to do this gig, and he recommended me. So that's another important lesson is everyone that you meet is potentially going to call you for a gig or something bigger and better. So that's why I tell struggling musicians that it's the most important thing is to meet people and become friends with them.
It's sort of the networking side of things, right?
Yeah. It's just, be friendly with everybody because you never know if they're going to call, you never know who's going to call you for these gigs. It's not like you can make these things happen on your own. You kind of have to rely on other people to help you out. But so the same time I was touring with Inner Circle, I got called to do this Latin gig. So it was kind of cool, and it worked out for a couple years where I was having two different touring gigs, and I was traveling a lot, and the money was great. Any
conflicts at all with the two gigs?
It finally did. It finally did catch up with me and bite me in the butt. But I'm trying to remember how it went down. But I had confirmed a tour with Inner Circle, and then the Latin artist thought they had confirmed with me, but really they didn't. And they expected me to do another tour. And I said, look, I'm going to Germany with this other gig, so I'm not able to do it. And then, we kind of got in a fight, and not in a fight, but it was, they were convinced that they had asked me to do this tour that they had, but they never did. So that ended.
That went by the wayside. Right.
It did, which was, I try not to burn bridges, and eventually it was a bridge burned that eventually got built up again because our paths crossed again, and we were fine. But that was an interesting couple of years having these two gigs. And then I'm trying to remember what happened after that.
Did you start doing
the same?
Yeah, go ahead. So
go ahead.
You start doing any session work or anything like that, or that come later?
Yes. So kind of in between when I got the reggae gig and the Latin gig, I got called to do some out of the blue, just some recording sessions. And the first major session that I got was for Santana. He was recording another album that he did. I think, the albums that he had collaborations with different singers and stuff.
Yes, I do.
So he was coming up with a second album. And the producer had called me because his first call guitar players couldn't make the session. And I guess he needed guitar that day because he had to send it over back to LA, I guess, for Santana to record on. So I guess I was probably like the third call player. And I said, yeah, I can do it. I'll be there in an hour. So I went down there, at this time, I've never done like a real recording session before, so I wasn't sure what to bring, but I brought maybe 2 guitars, like a Strat and a Les Paul and an acoustic, and then my amp. I don't even think I had a pedal board back then, or like a real good pedal board at the time. So I set up, and it was pretty simple. I was just playing power chords, basically rhythm guitar, because what Carlos would do is just kind of solo over all the songs, and that was his mark on these songs. So it was just one song that I did, but I played acoustic and electric on it. And then eventually it came out, and I was all excited about hearing it on the radio. I think it became the first single from the record at the time, which was great because I heard it on the radio. And when I bought the CD, this is at the time when we were buying CDs, and I saw my name in the credits next to guys like, Lee Sklar and Tim Pierce and all these guys. I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. So that was going to be my next question, is if you got credit. But did you parlay that at all? I mean, were you able to use that little bit of credit there to your advantage at all? Did it open any doors for you? That's always what I'm looking for.
I don't know if it opened doors, but it was coincidentally, I got called by different producers that knew nothing of this one particular producer for other sessions. So the same year, I was doing some more sessions, and I think a lot of it had to do with my gig with the reggae band Inner Circle. So Inner Circle owns a fairly nice studio in North Miami. So they would actually recommend me if they had a producer come in that was working on stuff and needed a guitar player. They would thankfully recommend me to come in to play stuff. And a lot of the sessions I got from their studio was like a lot of R&B and hip hop tracks, which was, is a big thing. This would have been 2003, 2004. So Miami was like a hotbed for hip hop and R&B. So a lot of big producers were coming through their studio. And eventually, I think I played on a Tupac Shakur track, which was, after he died, and a couple of different R&B sessions around that same year. So I was all excited. I had the Santana under my belt and a couple hip-hop sessions, but after about a year or two of that, it kind of just fizzled, and I didn't really do much session work after that. So it was mostly, I was heavily into playing live and touring at that time now.
Right.
So I only had a little bit of taste of big session work.
Has that changed at all over the years, or have you done more of that? Or not so much?
Yeah, not so much. It's not like I'm a heavy hitter here in the Nashville scene. I live in Nashville now. But a lot of it, I've done a lot of small session stuff, maybe demo session work, which is still a fairly lucrative business here. And I do a lot of e-sessions. Producers email me tracks, and I work at home and I send them back to them.
Yeah, well, that's probably kind of leads us into some of the other things I want to talk about, because you've been doing this for a while. But one of the main things that I was interested with you was the varied number of activities that you've been engaged in to sort of create this business of RJ Ronquillo. And, we can go back and forth a little bit, but let's talk about the way that I got to know you, which was through all these video demos that you've been doing for quite a while, and more specifically for the work that you've done with Eastwood Guitars. And, in full disclosure, Mike Robinson, who's the CEO, is somebody I've known for many years, and we've had him on the show. And so it was kind of a natural evolution. So I wanted to now ask a little bit about how you got into doing that work. And I know that, you've had this relationship with Eastwood for some time. And I think Mike has mentioned to me about one time about kind of how it came about, and I don't remember all the details, but what can you tell us?
Yeah. So I guess we'll start to when I started my YouTube account, I guess.
Yeah.
I think I signed up in 2006, which was fairly early on in the YouTube history. And I only knew it as a website that you could just post videos. It was never anything. I never knew anything about advertising or monetizing that stuff. I don't think that was a big thing back then.
Not yet.
So,
no.
Right. So I was actually just a user of the YouTube channel website. Mm-hmm. And I think I had posted maybe a couple videos of me playing just for fun, nothing serious. I didn't have any subscribers or followers. But I would watch other channels. I think some of the earliest people that I saw on YouTube playing guitar were Pete Thorne. I remember Pete Thorne, mm-hmm. And a guy named Lance Keltner, who's mm-hmm. in Austin. He had some really nice videos. And probably by the time I was really into YouTube, watching YouTube, I was also interested in a particular model of guitar that Eastwood was making, which was the Tuxedo.
Oh, sure.
Kind of like
a
single cut. Like a Barney Kessel style.
Yeah.
And I think I was interested in getting that guitar, but I couldn't find it in any of the shops. I was living in LA at the time. And so the only way I could get it or try it out was to get it directly from the company. And I think I had emailed Eastwood directly, and I think I asked about the guitar, and I asked if there was a discount, because I was, I wanted to save some money, and I felt that I had some stuff on my resume that would warrant getting maybe an artist discount or something. And I think I had emailed Mike saying that, can I get this guitar at a discount, and I will do a YouTube video about it and post it. And I think we worked something out, and he said, sure. So I got the guitar, and I did a little YouTube demo. It wasn't even a demo because I wasn't talking. It was just me playing over a blues track in a friend's studio in North Hollywood. And I sent it back to him, and I think it didn't really do anything for a little bit. And then eventually, when videos get shared and promoted, then it started getting more traction and more views. And apparently it got enough views worldwide that there was, I guess Mike was seeing some more interest in, they were saying, oh, I saw that video that RJ had posted. I'm interested in this guitar or this company. So basically it turned into a good promotion, not only for him, but for me. And it kind of went from there. He's like, are you interested in doing more videos? We got a lot of guitars coming out. And so it kind of skyrocketed from there. He would send me a couple models now and then. Nothing too heavy, but I would do the videos and send them to him. And this would have been 2010-ish, 2011.
Okay.
And it's still kind of early on in the YouTube game. So I don't think either he and I knew anything about monetization or all the different things you can do with YouTube. So it kind of went from there, and now he's like my main dude.
Well, do you have any sense of how many demos for those guys that you've done?
Oh gosh, I really don't. It's a lot, because I think they usually shared on their channel, so right. I don't have.
I do see them on the Eastwood channel, but there's tons. Yeah. There must be 100. I mean, I don't know if it's that many.
There might be upwards of 100. I would think. I think I know the view count is in the, I think, tens of millions, which is great.
Yeah, I've seen them. They are, and the thing that I would imagine that has worked really well in both their favor and yours is your incredible versatility and ability to play so many different kinds of styles right. to really show how the instrument can be used. And, all of these instruments are different, and being able to find the strong suits and demo them in a way that the market will identify with. What's the process that you go through to produce these things and determine what you're going to play?
Good question. So, one of the things that Mike and I have talked about was the style of video that I produce. From the get-go, my videos contained no talking. Primarily, it's because I didn't feel comfortable talking. I still, to this day, I'm not super comfortable, but I'm getting better. But he made a great point that because their reach and their interest is worldwide, that a lot of non-English speaking countries prefer watching videos where there's no talking, because there's that language barrier that might deter them from watching the video. They just want to see the music. I
don't think I've ever heard you speak on any of their demos. Is that right? Yeah.
No. On any gear demo that I do, whether it's guitar pedals or amps or whatever, I don't talk because I guess that's not my style. Like, that's what separates me from other gear demo creators. So, and it's easier for me just to, play and showcase the piece of gear. So my process is usually, like, I've kind of whittled it down to a specific process. It took me a couple of years to kind of figure out what my style was and everything. But the video usually has me playing with a backing track at the first couple minutes. So I'll create a backing track, and I use Logic Pro to record all my stuff. And I don't use like live drums or anything. I just program the drums. Right. There's great drum samples out these days. I actually program the bass now because I found some plugins that model like a real P bass and stuff that sound great. So it's easier for me to do all that stuff in the box with a keyboard.
So you do all your backing tracks yourself, and you're not having to get those from anybody else.
Before, when I first started and I was having to do a lot of videos, it was easier for me to download free ones or buy backing tracks from different websites and stuff. But now I want to create the backing tracks myself, partially because that's a whole nother revenue stream for me in the future. Actually, right now I'm selling my backing tracks.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why I do it. But so from there, I just kind of have the backing track. As far as like getting inspiration of what I want to play on this particular piece of gear, I really I don't plan it out too much. Sometimes I'll plug in the guitars or pedal, and the first thing I'm inspired with playing, whether it's like a hard rock thing or a blues thing, that's where I'll go. And that's just my path that I'll take. Thankfully, with this whole, gear demo thing, for the most part, I can play whatever I want, whatever style I feel, because a lot of it is they want my personality kind of shown through that piece of gear, which is great, because artistically speaking, that's, I get to be as creative as I want to be. And I'm not forced to play a certain way, which is great. But I'll play over the backing track a couple takes. I don't try to make it perfect, because if I try to make it perfect, I'm going to be spending all day on video.
It reminds me of how I produce these podcasts. Is I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, just short of needing medication. But it's you got to get it. You want it as right as you can get it. And I just make. There's a lot of videos that I have out there that I play some clams here and there, and I think that's kind of the beauty of it, is like I don't strive to like write a guitar solo or anything. All my guitar solos that I take are for the most part improvised, and sometimes it's like the first take or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just
it's just cool,
Yeah.
It stems from my jazz background,
And you can hear that. You can hear that. In fact, I remember one of the demos you did on a tenor guitar was very, very jazzy. And I was just so impressed with that. I said, boy, that looks like fun.
Yeah. It's just fun to improvise, and whatever you get, that's what you get, and then just put it out there. But so I'll do a take of that with a backing track, and then right after that, I just kind of run through the tones of the particular gear. Like if it's a guitar, switching the pickup positions, or playing it clean, or playing it with a distortion pedal, and with pedals, twiddling the knobs and coming up with different tones. And that's kind of, and I end it there, and that's kind of my style. It usually ends up being, after editing, less than a 10-minute video, which is more than enough.
And there's plenty there, though. That's the good thing about it. I've watched many of them, and there's just a good variety there, and it isn't a 1 or 2 minute thing. You can really see a lot of the instrument and the full array of capabilities.
Right. I try to showcase as much of the products as possible. That's why playing different styles is helpful. Because you never know what the market is, or who your market is as far as like the player. Maybe this guitar is great for old school blues player, but there's a hard rock metal guy that's into this style as well. So
do you have to determine any of that? I mean, I've seen a lot of the guitar. For instance, some of the guitars you've done surf music with, and do you feel that a particular instrument is really well suited for that kind of thing, and that would make the determination as to whether you go down that road or what?
Yeah, sometimes like just by seeing the instrument, like I'll know that, some surf rock guitar player is going to be into this, so I'll play it. Like if it has a vibrato and is interestingly shaped or whatever, that'll attract me to play surf music on it, and hopefully someone that's interested in buying the guitar would be in the same headspace as well. But there was a time where I was making videos and I had to make sure to play something jazzy and play something heavy metal on it. But now I think I'm at a point where I just play whatever I feel, and it usually works out.
Let me ask you a little bit about the business side of it, and we'll maybe go back and forth a little bit. But I'm assuming that the video demo business is a fairly regular thing for you. Is that right?
Yes, it is now. It's taken a couple of years to work itself up to be a business that I'm doing every day, and is kind of my main gig nowadays. Yeah. I'm taking the year off from touring just so I can concentrate on building my YouTube business. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. So do you have a backlog of demos now? Does that keep you going so you have stuff in the pipeline?
Yeah. I've got too much stuff in the pipeline. It's after the NAMM show, so usually before the NAMM show and after the NAMM show is when I'm at my busiest. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of products that I have to get done in the next couple days if I can. So part of my YouTube business is the gear demos, but I also do videos for my, I guess, personal brand, and that includes some of the tour vlogs that you've seen. Lesson videos, kind of insight type of videos that aren't necessarily showcasing gear.
Yeah, but this is the RJ brand, though, right?
Yeah, like I try to include not only my gear demos, but the viewers that would be into my channel. What kind of content would they be interested in? And sometimes that's what it's like being on tour, or tips for preparing for gigs, some jazz guitar lesson type stuff, a little bit of everything. I'm trying to reach a wider audience.
And you said you're getting into selling stuff. I'm assuming you're selling something.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I'm selling a lot of different things. Now, incidentally, I'm not selling like an album just yet. And a lot of people have been asking me to make a record. And some people are saying, they would buy a record of my gear demo solos, which is very interesting. But some of the stuff that I'm, offering up are, my backing tracks. I just started a Patreon page, which if you're not familiar with Patreon.
Oh, I am. I am. I can tell you I am. And we tried that at the very early days of the podcast, which was, and I think I said a couple episodes ago that was a huge mistake because of the timing. It was. I mean, it looked fabulous. And I thought it was terrific, and I was real excited about it. Maybe we'll get some money coming in. But not good timing. It takes work, and you got to.
It does take work, and I've finally got a handle on it, but I definitely would need some help on keeping track of everything. That's the hardest part, is keeping track of that now included with the other stuff. Yeah. But through that I offer like tablatures of some of my solos in my demo videos, which I transcribe myself. Wow. And that's an interesting exercise as well. I
can imagine.
But I have merchandise, like
what kind of merchandise?
Selling t-shirts, mugs.
It's the merch.
What else?
It's the merch.
It is. Merch is great. Everyone, I have so many t-shirts. It's ridiculous. I need to clean out my closet, but I will just buy t-shirts randomly. If I see something on Instagram or on YouTube, if I have a friend that's selling a t-shirt, I'll just buy it and wear it once and it'll sit in my closet. But everyone loves t-shirts. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I have to keep up with, but other than that,
you're busy. I mean, you got a lot of stuff going on, and the reason I think that this is so valuable and of interest to other players and other people in the business is that you've been very creative in terms of developing opportunities and taking advantage of the technology and the distribution methods and relationships, and it's an amazing story. I mean, I think you're still a young guy and you got it all ahead of you. What, as you kind of look around the business that you're in right now in general, do you have any concerns or see where there's opportunities for the future? Yeah.
So I mean, if you would have asked me 5 years ago if I thought YouTube was going to be, a viable place for musicians to make money, I would have said no, or I'm not sure. But it's great that it has become such a great opportunity for not just musicians, but creatives. It's a great way to get out there and get exposure. And you don't need the help of anybody. You can do it all yourself. But it's been I'm amazed how much the community, not only on YouTube, but just the social media community has been really welcoming and helped me get to where I am. As far as my concerns, I think with any business, I always in the back of my mind, I'm always, wondering what if, somehow YouTube fails or Google fails or, the government imposes some kind of thing that hurts all the creators on YouTube or prevents us from making money anymore. So that can always happen. I mean, it's technology, one day the whole internet could shut down and we'd have nothing and I'd lose all my videos and all that stuff. But I don't worry. I tend to not be a worrier, but
it doesn't help, by the way.
Yeah. I just kind of go along for the ride. That's kind of my view on life, is just kind of ride the wave, and wherever it goes, that's just go with the flow. But I'm kind of excited about how technology is helping out with, creators and people that are self-employed and doing it for themselves. I think it's great that I've been able to develop different streams of business that keeps me happy creatively, but also, staying afloat financially. I think I don't know if it's luck or if I kind of subconsciously sought it out, but I've always been into computers, and like you, I was into web design for a little bit, and because of my YouTube stuff, I've also gotten into video editing, and that's become a passion now. Not just video editing, but just like cameras and cinematography and the whole video thing. So that's something that I would enjoy doing. If I didn't play guitar, I would probably do something like that. Yeah. But
now, do you have a studio in your home now, or do you have to go someplace else to do all this, or what?
So I have a home studio that it's in my basement, and that's where I record all my videos, and I also do my sessions there. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of my office, and I don't know. It started out as just a recording studio, and then I put up some lights and cool little things in the background, and it became my video studio. And like my video setups have changed everywhere that I've lived. From when I first started with Eastwood, I think I was like in a tiny, I guess it was a 2-bedroom apartment in Sherman Oaks. So a lot of my early gear demos were in like little bedrooms on my computer, right. which is a lot of people, even to this day, some of the biggest YouTubers that have their setup in their bedroom.
Oh, I've seen it. I've seen a guy sitting on the bed.
Exactly. And they've got like millions of viewers and subscribers. It's great. So you don't need a lot of fancy stuff. I just got into it because I like to see, nice lighting and really cool angles and stuff. I just got into that stuff.
Yeah. But, well, it shows.
But yeah, it kind of grew from being a bedroom video studio into, I think I had like a guest house in Long Beach when I was living in Long Beach. And that was fun. I had like I think it was like a 20s era wood stove in the background. It's all brick. It's crazy. But now, I live in Nashville. I've lived in Nashville since 2015. We have a house and I have a studio, so it's super comfortable. Everything is ready to go. All my lighting and all my camera, just go down there, switch it all on, and I'm ready to go. So it's all wired.
So my final thought on this is for RJ. Do you have aspirations going forward that you really haven't gotten into? Do you have some kind of a bigger vision at all, or just more of the same?
No, absolutely. There's, I think this year is going to be the year that I actually put out a record or an album of me as a guitar player. A couple of years ago, I had a fun band called RJ and the Del Guapos that I started when I was living in Southern California. And it was a kind of rockabilly, 50s rock and roll type of sound. Mm-hmm. And it was fun to do. I just wanted to do a fun project. And, we eventually made a record that was on vinyl, and we did some gigs. But I knew that it was just something for fun. I didn't want to, go too far with it. And so that was something that I did for a couple of years, and I haven't done anything like that since then. But recently, a lot of, I hate to use the word fans, but subscribers and fans have been asking me to put out, an RJ solo album, which is essentially, the way I play on the gear demos.
I'm sure it would do quite well.
Like an instrument. It helps now because I have a kind of already a built-in audience for it, which is great. So, hopefully when I do release it, they'll go out and buy it or download it or however people are consuming music these days. But
how many subscribers do you have on YouTube now? I looked at one time, but
I think I just hit 48,000.
Wow, not bad.
Which is good considering I think last year at this time it was half the size. So
you're in a growth mode.
It's doubled. Yeah, and my goal for this year is to hit 100,000.
Yeah.
Which people say it's doable. So if I hustle, I think I can.
Well, if you're halfway there, it's definitely doable. Definitely doable.
Yeah, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, the plan is to put out an RJ solo album because that's something I've never really tried to do. A lot of it is because I didn't really find my style up until maybe a couple years ago. Because I loved playing different kinds of music. I loved playing jazz, blues, heavy metal, and now I think I've developed my style and my persona that I'm comfortable with actually making music that really defines who I am.
Yeah, it sounds exciting, and I would look forward to that. This has been a terrific interview and one I've wanted to do for some time, and you have a lot of good information, and I know our listeners are going to enjoy listening to it. And so I'm I'm really thankful that you took the time on a Saturday to come on with us. And I do look forward to staying in touch with you and hearing more things about what you're doing. So I hope you'll stay in touch.
Absolutely, Jeff. Thanks. This was great.
Awesome. So what did you think of the interview with RJ Ronquillo? We always want to hear from you, and you can do that easily through our official episode page on our website at guitarbusinessradio.com, or on Facebook and Twitter at Guitar Business, or email us directly at contact@guitarbusinessradio.com. And of course, if none of that works for you, just call our GBR hotline at 888-777-2404. You can do that right now if you like, or later. Operators are still standing around, but not for long. Please call them so they don't fall over. I said at the beginning of the interview that I was a big fan of RJ's work and have probably watched at least, 30 or 40 of his videos for Eastwood Guitars. And I've always been amazed at how he has created some very original works for each demo. And that seems to work really well because Eastwood has such a large and diverse line of instruments. So combining diversity with versatility, in my view, is a winning combination. But I think there's a bigger lesson to be learned here. Versatility is a beneficial trait, not only in our talents and skills, but even more importantly, in our thinking. Being versatile in how we think allows us to open those windows of opportunity much wider and see pathways that might otherwise not be visible. Do you know people that seem to not be too versatile in what they do? Which probably has much more to do with not being a versatile thinker than anything else. I'm sure that's where it starts. But unfortunately, versatility can at times require us to step out of the comfort zone of a more narrow view of things. Sticking with a narrow view often inhibits our quest for the true life we really want to live, or the work we want to do, or the business we'd like to successfully run. So you may be asking, what can I do to be a more versatile thinker? And of course, my answer is always the same. Stay positive. Stay focused on your destination or destinations, but most important, keep all your options open on how you're going to get there. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again on episode 54. And that's it for this episode of Guitar Business Radio. Thanks for being with us. You can stay tuned and stay in touch at guitarbusinessradio.com.